Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this meeting of the full council of Portsmouth City Council held here in the Guildhall. Colleagues, can I suggest that we start just with a minute's silence to remember those in Ukraine who've lost their lives and been injured in their defence, both of their country and those of us across Europe. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. Do have a seat. I'd like to welcome the very Reverend Dr. Anthony Kane, Dean of the Anglican Cathedral, who will say a short prayer. Oh, no, I need to, yes, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And following your suggestion of starting with silence, my prayer reflects the situation in Ukraine as well as what lies before us on this council meeting. Let us pray. God of peace, justice and mercy, we pray at this time for all who work for peace and for the avoidance or ending of conflict. Give a just peace to Ukraine. Peace among all nations, peace in our homes and communities, and peace in our hearts. And in our council meeting today, we ask for wisdom in debate and decision, and a deep sense of the welfare and needs of the people we serve, that we may discern the best ways to enable this city to flourish and to thrive. In all things, may heaven's light be our guide. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. You're very welcome to stay, but if you do feel like going, I think our longest ever budget meeting did go on till 3:30 in the morning, and I do think your predecessor failed to stay for that entire period. But it's good to see you as always. Ladies and gentlemen, for the attention of those members of the public wishing to record proceedings, the council rules prohibit the filming of photography of members of the public, so don't film across to the huge numbers of people across on the other side. But you are able to film councillors, and this meeting is filmed. Colleagues, evacuation procedure is as normal. If there is a fire alarm, it's real, and we meet by Queen Victoria. If you've signed in into this building, please sign out so they don't come looking for you. Microphones, colleagues, you need to press your button to ask to be able to speak, and I'll turn people's microphones on and off if I can do it properly. So, ladies and gentlemen, moving to item 1 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Colleagues, has anybody got any declarations of interest that they need to declare? Nope. Okay, excellent. So next thing is the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of December of last year. It's proposed by Councillor Steve Pitt and seconded by Councillor Joe Standen that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 9th of December 2025, previously circulated, be confirmed as a correct record. Colleagues, are you happy with the minutes? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Chris Dyke. Are there any other apologies? Nope. Okay, thank you very much indeed. In terms of communications, because I understand that 2 councillors from PIP have now moved over to Reform, That means that Councillor Joe Standen has become leader of the opposition group, and congratulations to Joe for that. Are there any other things that we need to cover from communications? Nope. Okay. There are no deputations and no questions from members of the public. Appointments, members, may I draw your attention to the agenda supplement which was circulated earlier today and hard copies of which have been circulated in the chamber. This contains 3 elements to be determined: proportionality of the council, appointments to various committee seats, and the appointment of the chair of the licensing committee. Can I have a proposer, please, for recommendations 2.1a, 2.1b, little 1, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, which is the proportionality of the council and the committee seats. Who is going to propose that? Thank you, Councillor Madgwick. Is there a seconder? I need a seconder. Councillor Russell Simpson. Thank you very much indeed, Russell. Are there any amendments to that? No. Thank you very much indeed. That's. Oh, well, no, colleagues, are you happy with those recommendations? Any opposed? Nope. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Next, we move on to the nomination for the position of chair of the licensing committee. Can I see a nominations for chair of the licensing committee? Joe? Sorry, Councillor Standen.
I would like to nominate Councillor Strudwick.
Thank you. And do you have a seconder for that proposal?
I do.
Thank you, Councillor Fazakerley. Are there any other proposals? Councillor Bosher?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to formally nominate Councillor Ben Swan.
Is that seconded? Sorry,
Second. Seconded, Lord Mayor.
thank you very much indeed, Councillor Brent. Are there any other nominations? No. James, do we do this by secret ballot?
No, if you take a show of hands for each one.
Okay, in which case the first nominated person was Councillor Strudwick. Can I see those in favour of Councillor Strudwick? Please show. 1, 2. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Can I see those in favour of Councillor Ben Swan? Please show. Well, a larger number. Okay, Councillor Swan, congratulations, and you take over as chair of the licensing committee. Thank you. Okay, we now move on. Urgent business. There's no urgent business before us today. Now moving on to the agenda, item 8, updates to officers of employment procedures and rules. Actually, stop. 2 people have changed roles, so I think we need to record our thanks both to Councillor Gerarda for her time as Leader of the Opposition and Councillor Strudwick for her time as Chair of the Licensing Committee, and I'm sure all members would wish to record their thanks to them for the work that they've done. Okay, now moving on to the agenda, item 8, update to Officers' Employment Procedure Rules in brackets Part 3D of the Council's Constitution. To receive the recommendations of the Governance and Audit and Standards Committee held on the 21st of January 2026, as previously circulated. I now propose to call the minute. If you wish to either question or oppose the minute, please indicate by standing and calling out either question or object once I've called the minute. Can I also remind members that any item with no objections made will be deemed to have been approved. I call Governance and Audit Standards Committee Minute 4, update to Officers' Employment Procedures Rules in brackets Part 3D of the Council's Constitution. No objection? Okay, that's accepted. Thank you, colleagues. Okay, we now move on. Okay. Moving on to item 9, approvals relating to the Hampshire and Solent Combined Authority to receive the report of the Chief Executive as previously circulated. As a reminder, the decision on this matter is for the Cabinet to make, which we will do it on its meeting on the 3rd of March 2026, and I'm sure the Leader of the Council will welcome any members who wish to come and comment at that time. The Cabinet report is before the Council to enable the matters to be debated by all councillors prior to the decision being made by Cabinet. In making its decision, the Cabinet will have to heard the debate today and pay regard to the comments made. As a noting item for Council, there can be no amendments. In order to allow questions to officers, I request under Standing Order 1, suspension of standing orders, that Standing Order 29, oral questions by member, is suspended for this item to enable members to ask questions of the officers present. If so, a majority vote for the members present will be required to pass this. The officers present today are Natalie, the Chief Executive, Chris Ward, our Director of Finance, and Paddy May, who's done all this. And Paddy, I think our thanks to everybody involved for the immense amount of work that's gone into trying to make sense of this latest thing that is being imposed on us. Lord Mayor, I'd like to move the suspension of standing orders to allow members to be able to ask questions of the officers. Councillor Bowshire.
You oppose the minute first, Lord Mayor.
Oh, all right. It's not what it says on the script here. So, in which case, can I, because it's not a minute, because it's a noting report. But Councillor Bowshire, do I suggest that you wish to, you wish to oppose the item?
Just to keep the clarity of the meeting going, Lord Mayor, I formally oppose the minute and move suspension of standing orders under Standing Order number 1.
Thank you very much. Do you have a seconder for that removal? Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, are you all happy with that? Yes, great. Okay. Chief Executive. You first, all right.
Do you want to turn off my microphone,
No.
Lord?
Mr Pitt, Councillor Pitt, Leader of the Council.
Deary me. Right, well, we got there in the end anyway. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I must correct you in something that you said, something I have done before. We're not being forced into this. This is something that we voluntarily put ourselves forward for long before the government's white paper in December 2024. We actually put in a proposal which was discussed with council and members at the time in September 2024 with a much more ambitious proposal for us to have a combined authority across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and with our preference being not to have an elected mayor. However, things moved on. The white paper was published, which had that section in it on LGR, which I'm sure will come up later again today. But this is not local government reorganisation. It's nothing to do with it at all. It's about devolved powers for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, or Hampshire and the Solent, as the combined authority will be known. Everything was going along swimmingly. We'd taken it through full council and had a discussion, and that went fine, and Cabinet signed it off, as happened in the other 3 upper tier local authorities in Hampshire, Southampton and the Isle of Wight as well. And we were, I think the expression that that I particularly like is we'd even picked the colour of the ballot paper, because when I asked Natalie if we were prepared for everything going forward, that was her response. And then when we weren't having a mayor. And that happened just before Christmas and threw everything up in the air. Now, Paddy's covered a lot of stuff with Natalie in the paper today, so you've got all that information and detail there, but in a nutshell, that wasn't as straightforward as it may have at first appeared, because there are all sorts of knock-on implications. I still think that some of what's proposed is balmy, particularly the date of the mayoral election in May 2026, because we will be having an election for a mayor that will be in the pre-election period when, if LGR goes ahead, the new local authorities will have been vested on the 1st of April in the middle of that pre-election period, which means that we will have a different number of chief executives, different returning officers, different electoral roles and everything, all to be amalgamated and organised with polling stations and goodness knows what else, all within a very, very short space of time. Very simple solution offered by us, which was just to have the mayor election in March. No, the government's absolutely determined they're going to proceed, which means that probably won't, it will get changed, but we are where we are. The crux of why we've this come back is, one, I made a commitment to full council that if there were any changes to anything along LGR and devolution, that they would come back to full council for discussion. And on this particular item, the bits that really matter are the bits around the deal. So we were expecting to get about 44.6 million a year with the Mayor. The Mayor has been pushed back by 2 years, by the way, not because of anything to do with democracy, but because the government forgot to put the money for the devolution priority programme in its budget. If you think I'm joking, look in the red book, it ain't there. So the only way to not pay the money now is to move the arrival of the Mayor back by 2 years. So that's what they've done, but that meant the deal changed. So we were offered a third of the money. We were offered £4 million a year capacity funding to make it all happen, we were offered some access to Homes England. We tightened that up, and that's a strategic partnership with Homes England, which potentially unlocks more investment into projects such as Summers Orchard and City Centre North. We will be able to discuss whether or not we want to implement a visitor levy, should it be that the government's consultation on that nationally decides to offer that to combined authorities. We'll be able to do that before the Mayor arrives. But importantly, the money moved from a third to 40%, lots of horse trading with the Minister, and we also increased the capacity funding from £4 million to £9 million over the same period. So the government moved quite a bit. They didn't move quite a bit with the other devolution priority programme areas because they were too busy arguing about postponements for their elections and making that what this was all about, instead of actually just trying to get a better deal from the government, as we across Hampshire have done. So that is where we are. That is the amended deal as it stands. As I said, it's not perfect. We would love the money to be coming down now. I did ask the Minister to pay the extra money not being paid to us in years 1 and 2, in years 3 and 4, once the Mayor arrives. That was declined. Well, actually, it just wasn't responded to, I think is a more accurate description. But we've had a discussion. We think we've got as much out of it as we can. So ourselves, Southampton, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight are taking this back through our democratic processes to approve the changed statutory instrument that has to be introduced into Parliament so that the combined authority can go ahead, which will be governed by consensus from those upper tier local authorities, with 2 votes for Hampshire and 3 votes, 1 each for Portsmouth, Southampton and the Isle of Wight, being rather moot, because in most circumstances we will just agree what is the sensible way forward. And when government asked us to explain why we thought that would work, we said because that's the way local enterprise partnerships made decisions for 15 years. That's how we make decisions from Portsmouth, PUSH. Partnership for South Hampshire, and that's the way we've run things like Solent Transport. We do things by consensus. We're very used to it. There's a lot of partnership work and goes on in the area, so we're pretty sure that we can make that work and get some stuff done before the Mayor arrives to deliver for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pitt, for that introduction. Colleagues, I think the floor is now open, both for speeches and to ask questions of officers if they so wish. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Question for the leader. Are all the 4 upper tier councils on board with the proposals?
Happy to answer that, Lord Mayor. So in terms of the leadership of those councils, the answer is yes. In the case of the Isle of Wight, it is, you may recall, now run by the committee system rather than by the leader and cabinet model, which means that in order to approve a change to the statutory instrument, they require a majority resolution at full council, which I believe is next week. Now, if they were not to approve this and reject the change to the statutory instrument, under the terms of the devolution process, one of all 4 upper tier local authorities need to approve this for it to go forward. Should the Isle of Wight not endorse it and reject the updated offer, then the whole deal's dead in the water. So the leadership of the Isle of Wight is trying to move it forward. We'll just have to wait and see what happens in their council meeting. I have assurances from the leaders in Southampton and Hampshire that they will be recommending to their councils that it is approved and that they are confident of success in securing that.
Councillor Gerarda.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's been confirmed that we're going to be set up as a strategic authority from the outset. I just wondered if the leader could confirm what benefits that brings for the grouping and for the authority. Thank you.
Yeah, so in terms of the benefits over short, medium and long term, Nothing's actually changed from what we agreed previously. It's just that some of the timings of things have been moved out a bit. So the Police and Crime Commissioner role, the Fire Authority role will roll in when the Mayor arrives, and will have involvement with the MCCA. And by the way, the acronyms around this drive you crazy. Sometimes it's a county combined authority, sometimes it's mayoral county combined authority, sometimes it's a strategic authority. I've heard it called a mayoral strategic authority by government in the last couple of weeks. I do wish they could at least decide what they're called. So I agree with Councillor Gerarda. It is a strategic authority. That's where we're going to end up. But the language needs to change over time. So the powers that the convening powers that we were expecting with the Mayor still have to wait for the Mayor, a lot of that. But there's lots that we can get on with. So what we went back to government with was the pipeline of housing schemes, because housing is the government's #1 mission, to deliver those 1.5 million homes. And we've said, well, if you want us to be getting on with some house building, these are schemes that are consented or about to be consented. And therefore, if we go ahead with this funding, we can get on and start getting shovels in the ground and delivering stuff. So that was the basis of the approach that we made. We think that's why we were successful, because we focused on that and securing more funding from the government. We will get on with it. The spatial strategy that has to be produced, we can prepare it, but the Mayor will still need to actually approve it when they arrive. But the growth strategy can be developed in the meantime. We will have that strategic partnership with Homes England. So there's some bits that have to wait for the Mayor, because that's the same all over the country, that only mayors can do certain things. But normally, things like the strategic relationship with Homes England would have to wait for the Mayor, and an exemption's been made for us around that, which is a positive. And the visitor levy is normally tied to mayors, but we've been told in our case it wouldn't be. So I think we're in, as I said earlier, we're in about the best place we can get to, given that the mayoral elections have been pushed back. And that is because with that 2-year delay in the funding being available, as far as we understand it, it's kind of best case scenario. Would like to thank, actually, put on record my thanks to the Minister, Miatta Fahnbulleh, who's been incredibly supportive and really open to talking to the 4 leaders. I think we've been a breath of fresh air, because everyone else has been shouting, whereas we chose to stay calm and just push for a better arrangement. Civil servants at one point were saying to us, what are your red lines? And we were saying, we're not giving you those. This is a relationship where we're passing things backwards and forwards to try and get to a best position, and we think we got there. So, in summary, nothing's changed in terms of the medium term. It's just in the short term, there's a few bits that have to wait for the Mayor to turn up.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Going back to my previous question, Leader, you said that if the Isle of Wight don't agree, then the deal is dead in the water. Clearly this is going to be pushed on. Strange question, but what exactly does dead in the water look like going forward beyond the Isle of Wight vote?
That's a good point, Simon. If we don't do this now, and I think Paddy's drawn this out in the paper, the government has started referring, because they need to do these spatial strategies and growth strategies all over the country, regardless of whether there's a mayor or not, regardless of whether there's a combined authority or not. So I think it was about 2 weeks ago, they brought out some comments that said that they with a plan of how they will do spatial strategies in non-mayoral areas, and they started to introduce language around foundational combined authorities. So in other words, the very most basic entry level partnership between upper tier local authorities in order to manage that process. So it's kind of devolution by default is the position that they're moving into, but really interestingly, there's no mention of any money to go with that at all. So if the Isle of Wight were to reject these proposals now, we will fall into that pathway which says that we'll still have to do a spatial strategy, we'll still have to do a growth strategy, that will still have to happen. But we will do it without any money and without any real powers. We'll just be back at that foundational level, because the government's been absolutely clear they want combined authorities rolled out across the whole country. So if the island made that decision, it would be a bad outcome for us, in my view.
Okay, colleagues, I haven't got anybody else wanting to ask a question. Oh, Councillor Bosher again.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Sorry about that. This is perhaps more of a question for Chris Ward. following on from the leader's answer there with no money, we're about to debate our budget here this afternoon. What could be the implications on our budgets going forward if the Isle of Wight reject the devolution deal?
Am I on? Yeah, well, obviously from the council's perspective, it's investment opportunities that are potentially lost. So you will know that we've got some key investment opportunities. Some of those relate to housing, some of those would relate to transport infrastructure, and we could probably see some of those opportunities certainly delayed and possibly lost.
Okay, anybody else? Oh, Councillor Smythe.
Well, I'm very grateful to the answers for the questions we've had so far. I understand the difficulties of trying to anticipate what would happen if the Isle of Wight refused to play, but they've been known to refuse to play before. I wondered if we could just find out from either officers or from the leader whether there's any precedence for this and what has been happening to other authorities when there is one partner that refuses to play. Because I don't feel that it was a very good answer to the question, Councillor Pitt, but I don't think we quite looked into the abyss and worked out what would happen next.
It's really clear, Councillor Smythe. If one of the constituent authorities pulls out, deal's off. That's it. So it's not like the other three can go back to the government and say, we really want to go ahead with this. The agreed geography that is on the table is Hampshire and the Solent, which includes the Isle of Wight. If the Isle of Wight pull out, then the deal is dead. This is what happened before when I previously remember this council was at the precipice of Paddy wears the scars of proceeding with a combined authority previously, and I think at 7 or 8 at night we had a deal with the county, and by 8 o'clock the following morning we didn't, and then it's dead. So the government's always been really clear, this government and previous governments, that when you are entering a combined authority it must be with the consent of the upper tiers.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Smythe.
So in a nutshell, we would lose money and we would delay the process. That presumably would affect the Isle of Wight as well and act in to press them to join in. Are the projects that they are putting at risk as well? Thank you.
Did you want me to formally?
Well, yes, I think that would be helpful.
Just on it, yes, that is absolutely correct. And you'd like to hope that therefore it will go ahead, but we'd have to remember that the Isle of Wight asked the other councils in Hampshire to all put together a case for the Isle of Wight to remain separate as part of the LGR process, and then the Isle of Wight didn't express a view on that themselves. So I can't account for where that may go. That's their business and their democratic process.
Councillor Smythe.
This is a very difficult problem, and I hope very much that you and the team succeed in getting this right. You will remember that I was chair of the Health Authority when we were forced to join up with the Isle of Wight, and I still bear the scars of it.
Okay. Anybody else? No. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, are you happy to note the report? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, moving on to item 10, to receive and consider the Portsmouth City Council budget and council tax medium-term budget forecast and capital strategy recommendations of the Cabinet from its meeting held on the 10th of February of this year. Members, as previously circulated and recirculated in the Chamber today, within the green sheets are the recommendations of the Cabinet. The budget report was also previously circulated with the agenda for this meeting. Further to letter sent in respect to the procedure for dealing with the budget debate, I will deal with the Cabinet's recommendations by calling out the minute number, pausing for any members' objections. Cabinet Minute 14, Portsmouth City Council Budget Council Tax 2026-27, Medium-Term Budget Forecast 27-28, 29-30, and Capital Strategy 26-27 to 35-36. Colleagues, are there any objections? I thought we got away with it. No. I think Councillor Bosher jumped in quickly, or quicker. I thought we were going to get away with it and we'd end up without a debate. Well, no. On the New Forest, when I was a councillor there, that's what happened. So everybody forgot to object and it just went through on the nod. So, Councillor Bosher, you're objecting, is that correct?
Yeah, I thought that was the Leader of the Opposition's role, but I'll object on his behalf, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I think the Leader of the Opposition was just behind you, so... Sorry, I'm not keeping up. All right, an objection has been raised and I shall shortly invite the Leader of the Council to move the Cabinet's recommendations. Before I do, just to remind members that the 6-minute speaking limit does not apply to group leaders on budget items until the standing orders are until the standing orders are revised. Now that bit is not right. Leader, can I now call on you to move and speak to the Cabinet's recommendations?
You can, Lord Mayor, and every time in a budget meeting we are reminded about these 6 minutes, I always think of Councillor John Ferret. I can't help myself. I think other people do too. He was particularly passionate about having his say on these occasions. Okay, Lord Mayor and members, as in our centenary as a city, I rise to present the Liberal Democrat administration's budget for 26-27. I am acutely aware of the circumstances. If, as looks increasingly likely, this Labour government gets its way, only one further time will a leader of Portsmouth City Council present their budget to this council. Members, let the enormity of that sink in. In February next year, the last ever Portsmouth City Council budget will be presented if LGR proceeds. By that time, there will be restraints placed by government on our decisions. So in reality, this is the last time when Portsmouth is completely free to make its own decisions. This year, we present a budget that yet again balances the books, finding £3 million in efficiencies and income to ensure that Portsmouth's finances remain stable and services protected. You will note from the budget papers that in order to balance the budget for the next 3 years, albeit that in reality it will probably only be for 2 of them, we need to find £1 million per year in savings alongside rises in council tax that the government expect us to impose, something I will return to shortly. I will remind you that the most recent report we have from consultants KPMG is that if we are indeed forced to merge with Fareham Gosport and Havant, the forecast budget savings needed for the Shadow Authority to set a balanced budget on day one of its existence is £67 million. Every day, I am reminded of what is at risk. Our libraries, our museums, our community wardens, the maintenance of our parks, our events programme, our greening work, the future ownership of Portsmouth International Port, our port, the frequency of rubbish collections, and something that will be hugely important to our residents, the maintenance of our roads. As the clock ticks down on the Colas PFI contract, it was timely that we were recently reminded that our local authority is the only local authority on the south coast of England to receive a green rating for the condition of our roads. The reason this is so important is that the leader of Hampshire County Council recently stated that the county only had £60 million available for roads maintenance this year. He stated that the figure needed to fix them to a standard that we here in Portsmouth would find normal was £600 million. Now, having spent quite a lot of time in Fareham Gosport and Havant over the last year, I can tell you that their roads are not in a good condition. Some are in a truly shocking state, and I regularly see the borough councillors moaning that they've been waiting, in some cases, years to get them fixed. It doesn't take an expert to work out that when the PFI ends, With the massive deficit the new council that we will be a part of will inherit from Hampshire County Council, and with limited capital resources, our roads will be levelled down to divert funding to those long neglected areas around our city. Portsmouth will inevitably lose out, as a majority of the new council will not be from Portsmouth and will want to see the investment they have long been denied. I use this particular example of the challenges we face because it is clear that those things that Portsmouth has invested in, protected and fought for, are all on the line in a very real sense. It is making this job very hard. Because every day I come across something else that makes me think, will that survive LGR? Our match funding for cultural and creative industries that leveraged nearly £800,000 in inward investment last year. Our business support service, which helps dozens of local Portsmouth businesses to survive and thrive. All of the early intervention work across social services, none of which is statutory, but prevents people, including our most vulnerable young people, from developing more serious problems in their lives. Our concessionary bus fares that go above and beyond the statutory requirement, and certainly above that delivered by Hampshire County Council. Our leisure card scheme. These are all choices that we here in Portsmouth have made. And that choice will be gone, and we'll be fighting for our share of, a larger cake, but one that will be delivered with a flipping great big slice of it missing. So if you've been putting local government reorganisation out of your mind, members, I strongly advise you to make it your business, to lobby the government with me to abandon this folly and to fight to keep their hands off Portsmouth. Now, we expect a decision next month from the Secretary of State. One person holds the fate of our great city in his hands. He may decide to opt for one of the options presented to him, or he may decide to do something else altogether, as we've already heard today. From the beginning, we were told that ultimately the Secretary of State will decide. Or as former Minister Jim McMahon said, you don't want Jim from Oldham drawing red lines on maps, do you? In December, when we received the local government finance settlement, it was obvious that the Isle of Wight had lost a big chunk of government funding. At that point, that figure was over £40 million over 3 years. If the government decides that the island is not a sustainable local authority, it could opt to force it to merge with one of the other clusters in Hampshire. Now, if that were to be ours, I can tell you that the £67 million figure will go north very fast indeed, and we will almost certainly be in Section 114 territory, effective bankruptcy for a council, on day one, even if the new council slashes and burns many of the things that I have already talked about and gets government permission to flog off our assets, not to make the new authority sustainable, but just to plug the gap for a year, and that's what the island's probably going to have to go through right now. Now, if you don't quite understand what that extra exceptional financial support means, it means that you can't balance your budget, so the government give you permission to, sometimes it's to raise council tax by more than the statutory threshold, but it almost always involves selling off council assets. So effectively, it's a bit like having a house with a mortgage, and you sell the house to pay off the mortgage, only to end up with another mortgage, but now with no house. Effectively, that's where we are. That's the world that we're living in with the current way this is being dealt with. It is absolute madness. You can only sell these things once. It was a Conservative former Prime Minister, when Lord Stockton, former Harold Macmillan, who talked about selling off the state-owned industries as selling off the family silver. This is the same thing. This is selling off valuable assets that councils have held for decades, sometimes centuries, being asked to flog them off to close a one-year budget problem. Complete and utter madness. Lord Mayor, colleagues, I ask you, is this really the government's vision for the future of local government? Because if it is, it looks an awful lot like the last government's vision, or lack of it. We need a proper review of how local government is funded, because 2% per year on council tax for social care does not cut it and is grossly unfair on local residents. Health and care nationally needs a full review. Everyone knows that. Kicking it down the road to the end of this Parliament was the wrong move from government. Now, I do want to acknowledge that we've received additional funding from government over the 3-year settlement period, and that is welcome. However, the way in which it's been done is fundamentally flawed and has left many councils, not just the Isle of Wight, in an even more perilous position than they were before. Why? Because the Secretary of State was forced to resign part of the way through the process, and the new Secretary of State, a former local government leader in London, was lobbied hard by his former colleagues in the capital and tampered with the formula, causing outrage amongst many council leaders, including his former colleagues, and has left us in the position we are now. This sort of thing has to stop. We need to listen to the cross-party work of the Local Government Association. Will that ever happen? Sadly, I'm beginning to seriously doubt it. Now, coming back to that additional funding, which I reiterate is welcome, there is misinformation that I do have to debunk. Sadly, both of our MPs lauded publicly an additional £62.1 million for Portsmouth over the next 3 years, but this is not correct. Around 18 million of that we'd already had in 25-26. So by the time the announcement was made, it wasn't new money, it was previously announced money, we'd already received it. Around 28 million of that is our money, our residents' money, straight out of their pockets, with a 4.99% increase in council tax each year for the next 3 years. Now, when I pushed back at the members of Parliament, as did other council leaders around the country about this, they said, oh, but that's the way it's always been calculated. I don't care how it's always been calculated. Pretend you're giving new money to people when it's actually their money is disingenuous at best. So, it's misleading and it's not fair. There is increased bulk funding, but importantly, it's not embedded. So it's not that we've got this extra money and then it's there every single year. It actually tails off over this spending review period. So in summary, we still do not have the long-term funding that all local authorities must have to deliver good quality, sustainable local services without the constant need to save money every single year just to balance the books. Of course, there will also be a need for council tax harmonisation across the new council areas, because we'll have to set one level of council tax across whatever the new geography is, and this poses another risk to our residents. We now have sight of the government's SEND reforms, and they only came out yesterday. I've had to change this bit of the speech, which isn't unusual with this government. You often have to change things at the very last minute. We've got sight of those SEND reforms, and we're reviewing to see what our view of them is, and see whether the huge cost rises of recent years are to be properly addressed. There are positive signs, but I have heard more than one head teacher publicly state that it's a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of the problem. So the jury's out on this one. But for us, as it stands, our direct schools grant will be in all likelihood at least £4.5 million in deficit by the end of 26-27. And if it continued at the current rate, that we could expect a deficit of perhaps another 8.5 to 9 million in 27-28. And what I can't find, and if somebody else may have done, but the white paper only came out yesterday, we don't seem to have clarity yet, 100% clarity, that those deficits will be written off in the 26-28 period, as they will be beyond 2028. And if we had to make a contribution to them, if we're talking about £13 million, even 10% is a significant amount of money. So we need to know where we stand on that issue. That's where we are. This is the mess our administration is still having to navigate in order to make sure that for as long as we possibly can, we keep Portsmouth financially stable and delivering the services local people expect and that so many of them rely on. So returning to the budget that's before us today, when asked to describe it recently, I answered, it's fixing the roof. Well, there is at least a glimmer of light through the clouds before the dark gloom of local government reorganisation depends upon us. And I think, with reflection, that is a very fair description of this administration's capital programme for 2026-27. We have set aside £4.2 million to ensure that our IT systems are fit for purpose and compliant with ever-changing national policies. We've increased the investment already in place for schools maintenance to ensure that programme schemes that need to be delivered can be delivered. We're continuing our rolling programme of investment into the city's playgrounds and sports courts. We're refurbishing the much-loved Rose Gardens and Cumberland House Museum before LGR pulls money north, east and west of us, away from assets that we all treasure. From existing resources, we're also installing new CCTV at Canoe Lake to be able to better monitor and manage the space. We are fulfilling our promise previously made to the King's Theatre to support their regeneration project. Monies allocated and then withdrawn during the COVID crisis are replaced in a timely, a perfect time as the scheme is commencing. We look forward to seeing the Kings transform and thrive for future generations to enjoy, and salute the dedicated team who have worked so hard to make the theatre a success. We are allocating over £4.5 million to repair and refurbish council-owned buildings to help future-proof them against future austerity forced upon a new council. This includes hugely important assets such as the Spinnaker Tower, our cenotaph and the D-Day Story Museum, as well as our enterprise centres that support hundreds of local businesses and our adventure playgrounds. And it's important to note that where the vast majority of local authorities have lost all of their youth services, ours have been maintained, supporting those communities in our city which suffer most from deprivation, providing a vital lifeline for hundreds of local children to grow up with safe and supervised places to play. Now, whilst the PFI contractors delivered a very high standard of maintenance for our roads, not all highways assets were included within it, or new ones have come online, or new priorities have developed over time. So in addition to the LTP4 monies passported to transport, £750,000 will be invested to ensure that we are continuing to maintain our tertiary road network, side roads for the uninitiated, providing additional lighting in areas where women and girls deserve to feel safe, and supporting urban drainage schemes to reduce the risk of flooding. We will also invest in plans to expand the park and ride and continue to develop the City Centre North Road scheme over the next 2 years so that we can deliver thousands of new homes on brownfield land for local residents. Now, an announcement has just been made on progress to deliver the Summers Orchard Council Housing Scheme, and I'm sure Councillor Sanders will talk more about that in his own contribution to the debate today shortly. But this will unlock 175 new council homes in the first block, ready for the rest of the scheme to then be brought online. This is really important for local residents. We're delighted that we've been able to give it the green light. Councillor Sanders and I have worked closely together on this from the very beginning, and we now have a deliverable scheme, and we're going to be building significant amounts of new council housing right here in Portsmouth. We have also allocated monies to progress plans to deliver a new water sports hub, as promised, at Eastney, now that works are underway to build the new swimming pools, gym and GP surgery at Bransbury, with the new play area due for completion in early spring. I would like to thank Portsmouth Parent Voice for their valuable advice and support in ensuring that this new play facility will be fully accessible and will offer a quality experience for all local children. These are all sensible and prudent investments to ensure that on the day we cease to be a local authority, we have done everything we can to protect those things that matter to all of us. It is so sad that we are losing our autonomy, particularly while we're celebrating 100 years of pride as a city. As well as the exciting regeneration at the King's, we will see Hilsey Lido reopen after a £7.8 million first stage of regeneration from levelling up monies, which has concentrated on preparing the pool for another 100 years, whilst leaving opportunities for further phases to be brought forward by the excellent team from Sea Lanes who will operate the site. And I believe the opening date's been announced today as the 2nd of May. The next phase of the sea defences in Southsea is due to open in the next few weeks, extending our world-class seafront while protecting 10,000 homes and 700 businesses. And we look forward to the next major artwork being revealed towards the end of next winter. It will be sited at what we're calling Centenary Square, adjacent to the Blue Reef Aquarium. This will build on the recent successful installation at Southsea Castle's Lighthouse unveiled on New Year's Day, and which was designed by Turner Prize nominated artist Nathan Coley. The North Portsea scheme is also on track and will complete the protection of the north of our island while improving the visitor experience for local families with a sculpture trail in development and work now complete to improve the area around Casemates and frankly stop the car park up there being like driving on the surface of the moon during the winter. The regeneration scheme at Castle Road, an excellent example of council and community partnership, as indeed is Summers Orchard, is nearing completion and looking incredible. The Tri-Sails, Sails of the South as they're colloquially known, are being refurbished to ensure that they are ready to welcome people to Portsmouth for another 25 years. We'll have updates shortly on investment in partnership with our leisure contract operators BH Live at both Wimbledon Park Sports Centre and Mountbatten. In addition, the cultural programme for Portsmouth 100 is developing all the time, and we have seen the investment made by this council already more than double as businesses have stepped up to sponsor our Lion Sculptures Trail for the summer and funders have recognised our work to invest in culture. When others are slashing funding by providing over £400,000 to date in support with some great initiatives this year, including a special Portsmouth 100 exhibition at the City Museum and Art Gallery in the autumn. All of this provides the perfect launchpad for our Portsmouth City of Culture 2029 bid. And I would like to place on record our thanks to Gemma Nichols and the team at Portsmouth Creates for an excellent lead up to the submission of the expression of interest. And I'm confident that we will see Portsmouth's name appear on the long list when it's announced next month. Momentum will be maintained to work towards that shortlisting in the autumn. It was this administration, working with partners at the Arts Council, the University of Portsmouth and Victoria's Festival, who had the collective vision to set up Portsmouth Creates in 2019, and it has been incredible to see how far it has come since then. It is something that all of us in this room should be immensely proud of and continue to support. As I draw to a close, Lord Mayor, I would like to acknowledge the hard work of Chris Ward, Richard Webb and Helen Clem in the finance team, Natalie Brahma-Pearl and the corporate management team, as well as all of our officers who serve us all in this city so diligently. This budget is a testament to their collective work to maintain high-quality local services while managing the costs, and we are lucky to have them. I would like to thank my fellow members of the Cabinet for their diligence in overseeing their portfolios this year and the excellent collective decision-making that we have seen throughout. Finally, I'd like to bring you back to where I started today, to the risks this city faces as local government reorganisation looms large. A badly thought through pet project of this government that provides not one shred of evidence to show that it will in any way improve the lives of our residents or the services they rely on. Consider all that this budget and previous budgets across different administrations of all different colours have delivered for our city and how much all of that is in jeopardy. None of us were elected to harm our city or its people. In fact, the exact opposite. And while we may have different views on how that is best delivered, it is that mission which I'm sure led us to stand for elected office and which we all share. Losing it is something that should bring great sadness to us all. And so, Lord Mayor, for the penultimate time for any leader of Portsmouth City Council, I commend the Liberal Democrat administration's budget for 26-27 to members.
Thank you, Councillor Pitt. Councillor Sanders, are you happy to second that proposal?
Delighted to, and reserve my right to speak for later.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, thank you. That's moving on. Councillor Joe Standen, as this is your first budget speak, to which I can welcome you. Thank you very much. Now, I've been given all the amendments, but we need amendments to go round. Joe, are you happy for your amendment to be circulated to members? Thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, if it's okay for Councillor Standen to start his speech while it's being distributed with... So you need to find a seconder first. Russell, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Russell Simpson. Thank you. So, just let's wait for a minute, Joe. Okay, Councillor Stannon, I think all members now have a copy of your amendment. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lord Mayor and members of the Council. Firstly, I would like to welcome Councillor Lee Tyndall and Councillor Emily Strudwick into the Portsmouth Reform Group. You are both exceptional ward councillors and a credit to your residents, and we're delighted to have you on board with us. Thank you also, Lord Mayor, for welcoming me as the Leader of the Opposition. It's just a shame not everyone can offer me the same courtesy. Although, on the whole, this budget is not a controversial one, we do have a deep concern about budgeting savings presented in the 1.2 million savings proposed within the adult social care. As we know, adult social care costs are the biggest burden on the councils across the country, and prices are forever rising. The budget before us today shows a plan to decrease adult social care in Portsmouth by a large sum. The savings sits within adult social care and is attributed to the Director of Adult Social Services. It is described as being delivered through a market-led approach to care. In plain terms, the council is assuming that it can reduce costs by using the care market differently, consuming care more cheaply, changing how packages of care are sourced and delivered, and the papers repeatedly assert that. Residents will continue to receive the care that meets their assessed needs, but this assertion is not evidence. This plan is incredibly high risk to our council. The adult social care market is already under huge strain due to workforce shortages, rising wage expectations, increased travel and energy costs, and provider fragility. Assuming the market will absorb a £1.2 million reduction without providers exiting, reduced ability, and increased delayed discharges. It's optimistic at best. This is not efficiency saving. It is a system-wide behavioural assumption. This £1.2 million saving depends on a fragile market behaving in a way the council does not control. And if it fails, the consequences will fall on vulnerable residents and not on spreadsheets. So to be clear, our group's concern is that this saving depends on market behaviour the council does not control, with no guaranteed fallback that protects residents. Talking on our amendment today, the Portsmouth Reform Group brings forward a clear resident-focused amendment to the 2026-27 budget. An amendment built on one simple principle: Portsmouth's money should work for Portsmouth's people. At a time when households across our city are under immense financial pressure, even when bills feel heavier and every rise is harder to absorb, we believe the council has a duty to relieve that burden away from any resident we can. The administration proposes a maximum 4.99% council tax rise, generating an extra £4.5 million per year. We believe that this is excessive. Families are already stretched, and we're in a cost of living crisis. Many are choosing between heating and eating. So a maximum council tax rise should be a last resort, not the first port of call. Our amendment reduces the council tax increase to 3.49%, in line with inflation. A meaningful difference to thousands of households, while still ensuring the council remains financially stable. This 1.5% saving should not be looked at as a £1.6 million saving it should be looked at as a £1.6 million saving to our residents, and not a £1.6 million loss in council tax income. We will achieve this by ending the Civic Futures Fund. In 2025, the Civic Futures Fund was created, but since then, the political landscape has changed. With local government reorganisation expected within the next 2 years, Portsmouth City Council will not exist under its current form. The fund currently holds £1.821 million, none of which is committed for 2026. Our proposal is to remove the remaining £1.821 million, use £1.6 million to reduce the council tax rise to 3.49%, and to invest the remaining £213,000 back into the community. I'm aware the opposition here may critique this plan. However, we have fully costed for future years to ease this burden on our residents during tough times, and above all, it is fair. As the opposition, we are not in a position to publish future years' saving plans, and as advised by the Financial Director. But I can assure you we have found cost-effective savings to balance the budget in future years, and it will not affect local residents negatively, should this budget amendment be approved today. With the remaining £213,000, we will invest in Portsmouth's people. We will direct £100,000 into children's activities that will provide 5 grants of £20,000 to the following community centres: John Pound Centre, Fratton Community Centre, Buckland Community Centre, Stampshaw Community Centre and the Stacey Centre. These centres are lifelines for local families, and this money will be used to offer after-school clubs in these safe spaces. We will also provide £100,000 in veteran support, spread over 2 years. As part of this amendment, this feels especially poignant today as we mark the 4th anniversary of the appalling invasion in Ukraine. And I'm sure I speak for everyone present today when we say Portsmouth is with you. Over the last decade, the face of veterans in this country has changed. Our heroes from World War I are sadly gone, and many are gone from World War II as well. The majority of veterans in our city are now under retirement age, and they look like us. This funding will enable veterans to apply for discretionary grants for essential support if they need it. Portsmouth is a proud military city and the home of the Royal Navy. About 18% of Portsmouth's residents are either serving, a veteran, a reservist, or immediate family member of someone who is serving. This is a huge proportion of our residents. We can't keep relying on charities for their support. Central and local government must do more to support those who have served our country, risk their lives in order for us to sleep soundly at night. In conclusion, this amendment reduces the council tax rise from 4.99% to 3.49% in line with inflation. It helps residents during the cost of living crisis. It invests in children, and it invests in veterans. My Lord Mayor and members, Portsmouth stands on the brink of major change. As we approach local government reorganisation, we have a responsibility to ensure that every pound spent delivers real value for the people we serve. This is Portsmouth's pound. Our amendment does exactly that. It is focused on the people of Portsmouth, and I urge members to support this amendment and back the budget that truly puts Portsmouth's residents first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Standen. We now move to Councillor Gerardo, leader of the Labour Group, to propose your amendment.
Is it going to be circulated first?
I was going to do that when you'd finished speaking. Your Deputy Leader may not agree with you.
Sorry, I'm telling the Lord Mayor what to do and chair his meeting. Apologies, Lord Mayor.
That's fine.
I'll take your orders. Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I think
okay.
you should,
In which case, if you want to circulate it, you have to. Graham, would you like to second it?
Yeah. You need to second it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will second the budget proposal for my colleague and reserve my right to speak.
That's very kind of you. And Councillor Gerardo, actually, if we circulate this before you start speaking, then you are not interrupted, and you have our full attention.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
And as you have unlimited time, this doesn't eat into your time. Councillor Standen, we had somebody sitting in Councillor Standen's chair once, when we had Deputy Leader beside, who surreptitiously removed pages from the leader of the Conservatives group's speech before he got there to try to reduce the length of the speech. And the group leader didn't notice that there were pages missing and just went on with his speech. So you're lucky not to have somebody there. Okay, is everybody got one? Councillor Adair, have you got one? No, you've been left out. Councillor Adair is missing one if you'd like to pass him down one. Has everybody now got a copy of the amendment? Good. Councillor Gerardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I just want to start by highlighting three transformational things that the Labour government has done to improve our Portsmouth's financial standing in the last year for our council, our residents and the local economy. And these are really big, important things that shouldn't be taken for granted. So first, the reduction in interest rates and inflation. Just last week, we heard the excellent news that inflation has fallen to 3%. The Bank of England said it thinks inflation will continue to ease over the coming months, nearing its 2% target in April. So some analysts think that the drop in inflation rate makes an interest rate cut next month more likely, which is good news for everyone with debts and mortgages. So finally, local residents are breathing a sigh of relief because their monthly mortgage payments are coming down and people wanting to get on the housing ladder are more likely to be able to. Second, the government funding increase for Portsmouth City Council at 19.9 million for the next 3 years. Hopefully I've got the right figure there, Leader. I did get that from Chris Ward, so I promise it's the right figure. This is a significant step in the right direction, and it shows commitment to reversing underinvestment and austerity in local government since 2010. Local authorities are seeing increases in financial settlements that haven't been seen for many years, which is obviously very welcome. Not forgetting, the government has provided the first multi-year settlement in over a decade, as well as taking action where the Tories failed, which is delivering on the Fair Funding Review so that every pound of taxpayers' money is directed where it's needed most. So funding is now given based on local need, with Portsmouth's higher levels of deprivation being recognised, and we've received an above-average funding as a result. Third, there have been other additional funds that the government has provided for Portsmouth, £40 million of Pride in Place funding for Lamport and Paulsgrove to improve those local areas with community-led projects, a new publicly owned defence housing service to renew 783 military homes in Portsmouth, and the expansion of the government's Youth Guarantee Scheme, with measures to support many of the 1,300 young people claiming unemployment-related benefits in Portsmouth. These are just a few additional things that the government's funded that benefits Portsmouth residents. Then just on the horizon, as we've spoken about previously, is the new devolution deal, which will provide unparalleled investment and planning opportunities across our region, where for the first time ever, we'll have devolved regional powers in the areas of transport, housing, employment and training opportunities. And by being established as a strategic authority, devolution will enable us to access new levels of funding that will allow more strategic, long-term and joined-up decision-making, which is better for Portsmouth, better for our neighbouring towns and cities, and also better for the region. Turning back to our council's budget today, it's being proposed that council tax should increase by 4.99% for this year, and this is a necessary step for our authority to meet its spending needs, particularly in the areas that pose ongoing financial challenges, such as children's services and social care. And despite the significant challenges for the council in attempting to meet the needs of our local residents and the steps taken to remedy the £3 million of savings that were required, our council's finances are in a strong standing again. And this position is the result of sound decisions made of people of all parties over many decades. Authorities elsewhere, for a range of reasons, are in dire straits, and it's a credit to various administrations over the years that it's certainly not the case here in Portsmouth. And it's also a credit in no small part to our brilliant financial director, Chris Ward, who year after year provides us with excellent guidance and advice. And we're very lucky indeed to have such a competent Section 151 officer, and we thank him for his service to Portsmouth, as well as Natalie and the rest of the team who've worked on the budget. Now, speaking as leader of the Labour Group, we are proud to put forward a budget amendment to fund several important initiatives from the city, and this very much come from listening to residents and their concerns about issues that they're facing locally. So first, in terms of road safety measures, a raised zebra crossing on Lawrence Road to help speeding cars and provide a safe crossing place for the hundreds of school children, families and residents that walk down that road every day. At present, there's a huge gap in safe crossing points, and there have been several very serious accidents down the road, and many are concerned about their safety. Second, continuing on with the issue of road safety, this time in Cosham, Highbury Grove, traffic calming measures, specifically speed cushions and raised tables to reduce speed on Highbury Grove. And again, this is in response to concerns from local residents about dangerous driving, speeding and road safety concerns for those who live in the area, but also pedestrians and cyclists. Third, 5 additional deployable CCTV units for Charles Dickens Ward, specifically for Seymour Close and Mayo Close. Residents there have shown concerns about public safety, increased levels of fly tipping and antisocial behaviour. So the additional CCTV will help to tackle crime, make the area safer and support with cracking down on fly tipping. Fourth, we're requesting additional funding for the play equipment replacement budget item. So we were very, very happy to see that the administration put in a lump sum for this specifically, which is brilliant. But we would like to add to it and put an extra £30,000, which would take it up to a total of £80,000, because actually this equipment is so expensive, and actually it doesn't, even £80,000 doesn't actually get very far with trying to make one park more accessible or several. So it's specifically to make enhancements to Portsmouth's existing play parks to improve accessibility for disabled children. And we hope that there could be a combination of small, medium and large play units to be guided by the outcomes of the scrutiny panel into improving accessibility in Portsmouth play parks, and also to seek consultation with relevant parents groups as well. So this item's been put forward in response to parents contacting us with feedback about the lack of disabled play equipment, and is a move to make our parks more inclusive. Fifth, there's something that's already been agreed, so joint funding between corporate contingency funding and Cosh and Sill to fund improvements and an extension to the Community Kettle Community Centre on Cosham High Street, which would accommodate a new cafe, provide better communal areas and better use by local residents. And all of our budget amendments are being funded by making reduction to the city centre road budget item. We've been informed that by reducing this item by £200,000 for this financial year, it wouldn't seriously affect the programme of works that need to happen in the first instance, and the rest could be made up in 2027-2028. In terms of the Labour Group's views about the administration's budget being proposed today, we absolutely agree with the investment in the council's IT infrastructure and our city's cultural assets. Upgrading IT systems isn't sexy, it's costly, and many people will ask, is it really necessary? This is a large amount of money, but we understand that it absolutely is, particularly for us to be legally compliant as a council and to be more efficient, so we absolutely need to do those things. And we also very much support the administration's investment in our city's cultural assets. This couldn't be more important for Portsmouth in its centenary year and in our bid to make City of Culture. This gives us the best chance of succeeding. The Spinnaker Tower, the King's Theatre, the Natural History Museum, these are all jewels in our city's crown. These are well used and loved by local residents, but also visitors. And these institutions deserve our support and investment to support their development for now and future generations to come. My Lord Mayor, Labour in power invests in city assets for the benefit of residents and visitors. In our own city, the Spinnaker Tower and the development of Gunwharf Quays is a legacy of Labour running the council in Portsmouth. Nationally, Labour is taking steps to ease the cost of living, provide stable and secure housing for the country's most vulnerable, and bring vital public infrastructure like rail back into public ownership. So these are just some of the transformational things that Labour has and is achieving, and it's what drives us as Labour councillors to want to make Portsmouth an even greener, safer and fairer place to be. Thank you, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Can we now move on to Councillor Bosher with your, Councillor Standen.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I think I do need to express a personal interest in my amendment in the fact that, or should I say our amendment, in the fact that I am a veteran.
Okay. Thank you. Just to be clear, Mr. Balfe, does that mean that Councillor Standen can't be involved in the debate? Not prejudicial, okay. That's great. Just best to be safe rather than sorry. Okay, Councillor Bosher, your amendment, which I understand is going to be seconded by Councillor Swan.
Yes, formally proposed, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Swan, would you like to second it?
I would second it.
Thank you. Councillor Bosher, is it okay to circulate your amendment?
Oh, please do, Lord Mayor. I'll get a copy of my own amendment to read. What did I put forward?
Just check it's the right one, Simon.
Yes, I think it is. Okay, firstly, Lord Mayor, I'm just making sure I've not got a Conservative colleague either side to remove some of my pages first before we actually start. But if I am interrupted, as Peter Smith-Parkin suggested, I can actually start my speech again, so you're on notice. Firstly, Lord Mayor, a massive thank you to all the staff who support councillors of all parties in the excellent job they do, and in particular to Chris Ward and his team for their support in creating not only the Conservative budget amendment, but also developing a budget in the wake of the Labour government's impact on our city finances. And you've probably got an idea where I'm going with my speech, Councillor Gerarda. Lord Mayor, back during the last general election when Keir Starmer wanted the vote, he said, I quote, "We need to be clear about council tax. Labour would freeze council tax next year and beyond. Not a penny more on your council tax. Not a penny more than the bill you paid last year." That was 2024 we're talking about. A tax cut for 99% of working people. And yet this year, Lord Mayor, Portsmouth will likely be increasing council tax by 4.99%, as we did in February 2025. The local government finance settlement means that most councils are having to raise council tax just to accommodate Labour's job tax. According to the Local Government Association, Rachel Reeves' decision to increase employer national insurance has been a major contributory factor in increased council tax bills. But then, Lord Mayor, Keir Starmer has made a lot of false claims in his short tenure as Prime Minister. He said he would cut our household energy bills by £300. Well, since 2024, the price cap has risen by approximately 18% under Labour, not reduced by the promised £300. And whilst on the subject of electricity prices, Lord Mayor, the £24 million plug-in power system designed to stop ships burning fuel at Portsmouth International Port may never be used. Brittany Ferries has said it will not use it whilst electricity prices remain high, as much as 4 times more expensive than marine fuel. The capital programme, Lord Mayor, for 2026-27 and beyond has accommodated a significant overspend on the Port's Shore Power scheme of £4.3 million. And the Port Director, Mike Sellers, has been quoted as saying the scheme could be a redundant asset as little as 7 days ago. Was this the right thing to do? Well, absolutely yes. We all voted for it. But if we want to improve air quality in Portsmouth, and all the time that electricity prices are 4 times the cost of marine fuel, it risks becoming a white elephant in the port. Lord Mayor, back in 2020, Keir Starmer tweeted the following: "Boris Johnson and his government have lurched from crisis to crisis and U-turn to U-turn. To correct one error, even 2 might make sense. But when they've notched up 12 U-turns, the only conclusion is serial incompetence." Well, Lord Mayor, since taking office in 2024, the Labour government, led by Keir Starmer, has had 14 U-turns. By my calculations, that's 1 every 6 weeks. So by his own metrics, his government has lurched beyond serial incompetence in just 19 months. As they say, Lord Mayor, there's always a tweet. So let's skip over the ones on local elections, mandatory digital ID, welfare and PIP reform, unfair dismissal rights, grooming gang inquiries, 2 child benefit caps, and a certain Peter Mandelson. Otherwise, I'd be here all night, and former councillor Madgwick would be needing his sleeping bag pretty soon. But just look at the financial ones. Through the 2024 general election, Labour promised not to hike taxes on working people. Within 4 months of taking office, they broke that promise, hiking taxes by 40 billion in their first budget of broken promises, including a 25 billion jobs tax that made it more expensive for employees to take on staff. And in November 2025, Rachel Reeves came back for more, with a further 26 billion in tax hikes on savings, pensions, houses and business rates. As well as breaking their tax promises, in July 2024, Labour broke faith with pensioners and snatched winter fuel payments away from millions of poor and vulnerable pensioners. But in May 2025, after the winter, Keir Starmer U-turned. But he never apologised for the distress his choice imposed on the nation's elderly, having to deal, as I did, with a 91-year-old widow who came into our surgery, and councillors Brent and Gardner will remember very clearly, who sat there and burst into tears because she'd had her winter fuel payment withdrawn, was one of the hardest issues I've ever had to deal with in 24 years as a councillor. Unnecessary. It was, however, heartening in the human nature that we actually have to receive messages from all across the UK offering to pay for that widow. But it shouldn't have had to have been like that in the first place. But in October 2024, Labour also broke faith with farmers and imposed a family farms tax on Britain's rural communities, a tax that would have forced many farmers to sell up paying a crippling inheritance tax bill. But after 14 months of campaigning with farmers across the country, Conservatives forced Labour into a partial U-turn. Labour may have increased the threshold for this tax, sparing many farms for its impact, but the fight for a full repeal goes on. Keir Starmer and his front bench used the WASPy women as a political prop to win votes. But no, as soon as they became government, they betrayed the WASPy women, like so other many of the Labour promises. Keir Starmer said, fair and fast compensation for WASPy women, just like Stephen Morgan, who went even further, coffee mornings, delivering a letter to Downing Street. I will continue to stand up for WASPy women in Portsmouth and across the country, said Steve. Yet another photo opportunity. And then shamelessly went on to vote against WASPy women at the very first opportunity he had. In November 2025, Rachel Reeves announced a huge increase on business rates for pubs. MPs went back to their constituencies and got a pretty frosty reception from landlords. I think there were lots of signs saying Labour MPs not welcome here that went up in pubs. Labour did a partial U-turn on this plan. After all, what would Morgan and Martin do with their time if they couldn't have a pint with your MP photo opportunities? But the vast majority of pubs will still be paying far more in business rates under Labour, and many will sadly be forced to close their doors for good. We're losing them in Drayton and Farlington. We've got one left now, sadly. And finally, Lord Mayor, Rachel Reeves promised not to freeze personal income tax beyond 2026. But in her November 2025 budget, she U-turned and broke this promise too. Over the course of this Parliament, this broken promise will cost workers thousands in extra taxes. So there's a couple of slogans, perhaps. Vote Labour, pay more. That could be one. Or how about promise everything, deliver nothing, blame someone else? That's probably more appropriate, I would suggest. Each year, Lord Mayor, this council strives to produce a structurally balanced budget. Forecasts prepared by Chris Ward and his team are based on the expected costs the City Council will incur to deliver at current levels. And when you go through the budget report, I did read it page by page, Chris, honest. The most telling statement, Councillor Ashmore, behave yourself or I'll start again. The most telling statement in the preface is in section 1.3. The pace at which costs rise is not matched by the pace at which income and funding rise, creating an underlying structural imbalance with the overall financial system. At the time of writing, The financial challenges faced by local government are expected to see between 30 and 40 councils seeking exceptional financial support from central government. At this point, it would be very appropriate for me to actually have a look at Reform's amendment. And there are a couple of things that actually struck me from what they are actually proposing. The first is the reduction in council tax they're proposing amounts to a Band C reduction of £24.23 per year. That's 46p a week. But actually, when you look at the Section 151 officer's comments, and there are many, but I will just pick out two. I'm sure others might pick out others. Electing to reduce the level of council tax increase by 1.5% amounts to a loss of council income of 1.6 million for 26-27, and every year thereafter. Now that's the telling bit, every year thereafter. The council tax income loss amounts to 6.9% over the period to 2029-2030. Point 4, the amendment is inconsistent with the way in which central government assesses and allocates funding for local authorities. Central government provide their funding on the basis that a full increase of council tax of 4.99% is applied, whether we like it or not. Electing to reduce council tax, therefore, disadvantages the council's funding position. Now, Councillor Standen, when he spoke, he didn't actually tell us where he was going to get these future years' savings from, which I would think would have been the responsible thing to actually do. But actually, if we look at Derbyshire County Council, and I'm just looking it up now, which has a reform-led council, what they've done, nursing homes, closed. Dementia care centres, closed. Centres for learning disabilities, closed. Transport for SEND students, which is something that is very much front and centre, cut. Teaching assistants, cut. Social care staff, cut. That, I think, demonstrates what we are likely to see with a reform budget in Portsmouth if we are not careful. That money has to be found somewhere. And the places that will have to be cut from will affect the most vulnerable in Portsmouth society if we let it go through. Local government reorganisation will also have a significant impact on our budget going forward. Case for change submitted to central government by the 12 councils, including Portsmouth City Council, identifies a cost implementation of a four unitary mainland option of 132 million. On a population share basis, the cost to Portsmouth City Council would be £15 million. You could make that £21 million if you were looking at a reform budget going forward. The forecast deficit, Lord Mayor, is currently 3 million, but that could vary up to another 6 million or another 12 million. The majority of those pressures can be directly attributed to the pressures on adult and children's social care, the areas that Derbyshire County Council targeted with their cuts and closures. But it also can be attributed to a hike in the employer's national insurance and the funding gap arising from a demand of cost outpacing government funding. So we're in a perfect storm here, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, we've looked at the budget closely, and unfortunately the impact of the Labour government does not provide too much to offer comfort to our residents. We're asking them to pay more just to maintain the line, whilst they're struggling to pay increased energy bills and facing job uncertainty as employment rises. This budget gives very little to work with, and I fear it will become worse going forward. Lord Mayor, I won't go through all of the details of the Conservative Group amendment because it's quite clear there for everybody to see. Road safety should always be welcomed, and it's to that end we're seeking just £6,000 for a feasibility study for a one-way system in Kensington and Chelmsford Roads in Copner. They're constantly regarded as a rat run in the area, and residents have issues there, and we think the feasibility study will be the right way to go to see that we get the right solution there. Anchorage Lodge, very popular community centre in Anchorage Park. It's become very tired and it's beginning to fall into disrepair. We're seeking £20,000 to provide refurbishments and to redecorate the centre. All of these have been costed. Drayton Park Pavilion has become a centre for the park community. It's benefited by Fleur-de-Lis and it has become a hub for the whole area there. It's benefited from councillor seal money. However, it continues to suffer from thoughtless vandalism, and £14,500 has been costed to repair and install security shutters in an attempt to reduce that. I also noticed that Zetland Park, which has been a long-standing target for Aquins to annex as a storage depot in Farlington. It's not all about the south of the city. The impact, particularly in Farlington, is going to be immense. They've targeted Zetland Park as somewhere where they want to stick all their pipes and vehicles and whatever. But it's been added to the programme of improvements for the coming year. And I think by improving and enhancing the areas such as Zetland Park sends a clear hands-off message from this council to Aquins. All of our schemes have been costed and where we propose to take the money from are detailed in the amendment. But I would also like to offer my thanks to the leader. He's listened to us on our several concerns and has been supportive in our initiatives. Lord Mayor, this is a much tougher budget than it should have been, all entirely down to the Labour government. But I formally proposed a Conservative amendment for the Port City Council budget 2026-27. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Bosher. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for debate. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to touch on the reform amendment, if I may. I mean, the Section 151 officers' comments are there for all to see. They are very damning, and it's their approach, unfortunately, is the reason so many councils around the country are facing the deficits that they've got now, and especially Hampshire County Council, because they kept the council tax lower than it otherwise should be. And that's the reason for that. So it's not a smart thing to do, gents and ladies and gents. British sports people have enjoyed unprecedented success, all the condoms they've given out, success at Cortina Winter Olympics. It is a joy for me to speak about the enormous success of grassroots sports and leisure provision here in Portsmouth. Year after year, budget after budget, this Liberal Democrat administration and some others continues to enhance and modernise our city's facilities and events. Opened in 2024, King George V Football Complex is a £8 million transformation of redundant changing rooms into a state-of-the-art community sports hub in Cosham. Our partnership with the Football Foundation is delivering accessible sport for all. Run by Hampshire FA, the statistics are massively impressive. Up to September 25, 218,000 visitors through the doors, over 130 teams taking to the pitches every week, and plus 4,000 players using 3G pitches every week. 64,000 food and drinks transactions. The clubs include Meon Milton, Fleur-de-Lis FC, East Lodge, Paul's Grove FC, Moneyfield Girls, Baffins Milton and Mob Albion. And this football complex continues to grow and win awards. Lord Mayor, we took on the naysayers who tried to stop this. They did everything they could to stop it. We won. This administration won for the people of Portsmouth. And Lord Mayor, as I'm standing here, our successive budgets and planning see spades in the ground at Bransbury Park, where we are delivering a new swimming pool, learning swimming pool, GP facilities, new sports provision, a new playground, plus 50 more trees. Once again, Lord Mayor, this Liberal Democrat administration has faced down the naysayers and is delivering for the people of Portsmouth here in the heart of Milton and Eastney. Our approach, working with sports governing bodies, clubs, charities, volunteers and residents, continues to deliver grassroots sports and leisure facilities to be proud of. Today, the news published the May opening date for Hilsey Lido. As we debate here, more contractors are on the site delivering a much-loved community facility regenerated for decades more to come. It is important to recognise the brilliant job that Penny Morton did to win levelling up funds for this £8 million project. And once again, the winners are the people of Portsmouth. In Nelson Ward, we continue to work with residents to deliver and to renew the Buckland Park Muga, which includes seal money, and for basketball and football. We will also deliver play zones across the city, including at Baffin's Pond, Stamshaw Park and Charles Dickens Community Centre. A new youth centre in partnership with BAE Systems is being built now adjacent to Stamshaw Adventure Play Park. And we continue to support our community centres every day of the week and play parks, giving more people more to do, thereby keeping youngsters off the streets. And Lord Mayor, every time we speak to residents how to tackle antisocial behaviour, they say, give young people more things to do. This drives our thinking. Last summer, the text panel gave a glowing appraisal of our parks. The team continues to work with volunteers to improve and enhance our parks and open spaces, winning green flags. A big thank you to all our gardeners out in all weathers. And once legal matters are resolved, I will soon receive a report on the proposal for a PSPO at Waverley Gardens. This year, we established a community safety forum within the Health and Wellbeing Board to better advise members on such matters. Working with partner agencies across the region and the UK, our trading standards officers have had enormous success tackling criminal trading, criminals trading illicit tobacco and forged goods. A year of unprecedented success sees Portsmouth TS trading standard officers hailed as a leader in tackling this form of organised crime. The prosecutions and raids have featured heavily in the press. Equally, our private sector enforcement and investigation teams continue to seek out and prosecute rogue landlords running unlawful HMOs and fleecing tenants. We will continue to crack down on such crimes. The private sector ASB post that we established is helping to resolve neighbour disputes. Most importantly, our budgets continue to work with the government and the Police Crime Commissioner, police partners to address domestic abuse, violence against women and girls, and bear down on knife crime. We continue to fund, prevent, and all the good work in that area. Our brilliant kennels and team look after our strays, winning awards and help gather evidence.
Councillor Hunt, if you could bring your comments to a close.
Yeah. Is that the 6 minutes?
That's 6 minutes.
Lummy.
It's 6 minutes. It's 6 minutes and more.
I wanted to say a lot about so many people, especially the wardens, but Lord Mayor, I have to say, from the hill to the sea, we work with volunteers and many more people to make Portsmouth a safer, cleaner and greener city. And be in no doubt, as the leader says,
Councillor Hunt.
Sure, hands off Portsmouth, because this is going to really threaten everything that we did, and I'm sorry I didn't fit everything in.
Thank you.
I tried.
You did.
I timed myself yesterday, it was all right.
Councillor Sanders.
I'm sure your clock goes too fast.
I really can't top some of what Councillor Hunt has just said, so I ain't bothering, frankly. My Lord Mayor, in the time-honoured tradition of members in this chamber, I can say I was not going to speak about this budget.
So why did you show me your speech?
As you may have noticed, my Lord Mayor, I am. But the reason is different, because I wasn't going to speak until Councillor Gerarda suggested I do. Now, I don't always do what she wants, and I'm sure the groans from the rest of the chamber are massive and huge as a result, but hey, it makes this Lib Dem administration look good, so why not? because it came from a briefing that happened on the Summers Orchard scheme group leaders had yesterday. Councillor Gerarda had the good grace to be there, and it was her comments that were the inspiration for the vast majority of this speech. Because as the leader indicated earlier, today we can announce liftoff for the first phase of the Summers Orchard project. That's 175 homes Portsmouth people can afford. 56 of the family homes that everybody who comes to us looking for a better place say they want. 29 homes for people with wheelchairs. Again, something people come to us and say they desperately want. It is a major, major bonus for people in this city. But you can see what it means financially in the budget papers, but more importantly for people in Somers Town, it offers that most intangible of qualities, hope. For too long, residents there, including, and I have to declare an interest here, Mr. Balfe, me and my late mother, had to put up with plans not only put together by people who never wanted to live there, but plans that never happened. I remember one scheme that wanted to knock down half of my mother's block so everyone could get a world-class view of Astley Street, and everybody who's been down Astley Street knows exactly how crucial that is. It was a plan so pious that it not joining the queue of failure was frankly a blessed relief for all of us. That's why when the chance came to put together a plan for the former Leamington Horatia houses, I didn't want to repeat the past. That's why the scheme has been led by a community panel of local people, their hopes, their dreams, for the first time at the fore of their future. And I praise every single person who has been there because we're delivering on what they want. We know liftoff has been a long time coming, thanks to the weird combination of the pandemic and the crazy aftermath of Agent Liz Truss, but we are here at last. But there is one aspect that I think can take us further, and that comes back to the conversation Councillor Gerarda and I had yesterday. The devolution deal we discussed, Nadia, I have to say a vast improvement on what the Labour government was offering, will benefit people in this city. The leader has said how we got here, but as he's also said, by focusing our offer on making sure devolution delivers homes for people across Hampshire through schemes that are like Summers Orchard that are ready to go, if only the money are there, we and our partners in Hampshire, the Isle of Wight, and oh yes, that place up the road, can make a real difference to people's lives. As far as Summers Orchard is concerned, the deal we've noted today can finish the job. There are more than 300 homes to go in the next phases, many designed to attract people to Somers Town, as well as more council homes Portsmouth people can afford. And that's why the strategic partnership with Homes England we've secured in this deal changes the game. It enables co-investment in schemes like Summers Orchard through things like the National Housing Development Fund and the Social Affordable Housing Programme. And crucially, that starts from this May. Not in 2 years' time, when a mayor turns up. Now, this administration believes getting power out of Whitehall into local communities is good. We may not like the idea of one person believing he or she knows what 2 million people think, but the principle is sound. And it's sound because of something we all face. Too many people simply don't feel in control of their lives or their communities. When they look at politics, they just want to know someone's fighting for them. That person may not always win, but they want to know someone has their back. This administration has a track record of fighting for the city. We may not always win, but we always give it a go. That's why with our partners, we've got a devolution deal that's one of the best in the country. That's why we're doing all we can to keep the government's hands off Portsmouth, so services that boost the lives of people in this great city, services our neighbours don't have, can stay. Because we fight, fight, and fight again for this city and its people, knowing that at the end, winning gives people in Somers Town and across the city the one thing they so desperately want, hope. And we do so because we have a plan. Councillor Bosher has noted the reform amendment. As a Baffins councillor, and I have to say as a trustee of the Stacey Centre, I'm very interested that reform can't spell the Stacey Centre properly. I'm also interested that the leaflets they send round the Baffins ward, talking about lights for the pond, extra warns, tackling antisocial behaviour, not in here. And I might be mentioning that to a few people around the place as we go forward. But the 4 key words in here that worry us about the future are there is no plan. There is no plan to remedy the increased budget gap. No plan has been proposed to address the additional deficits. It's like what I say to housing officers at the start of the negotiations every year. Can you cut rents, please? And they give me that. I listen because I'm interested in fighting for the people of this city, not making sure people not making sure people save money to the extent of a cheap pint at Spoons a month. I tell you, that's why I'm backing this budget, and thank you for your time, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Winnington.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I think this is unfortunately, as Councillor Pitt said, is a potentially historic budget, being our penultimate one as a city, and I think that is an absolute tragedy for Portsmouth. If you look on this wall behind you, you've got all these Lord Mayors listed going back centuries. All of those were corporations that ran Portsmouth. So they did budgets, they ran this city for Portsmouth. Under a new authority, that will not happen. It will be an authority, if the government continues to force us into it, into an authority with Havant, Gosport, Fareham, and possibly bits of East Hants and a little bit of Winchester. Look at that. His centuries of history will be destroyed if the government doesn't listen and keep their hands off Portsmouth. But this budget is also very significant in the context of what's going on elsewhere in the country. Because this budget is balanced and this budget does not cut services. That is unbelievably unusual in 2026 in England. Incredibly unusual. Just today, we've got a list of councils who have gone for exceptional financial support. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds being given to councils who cannot balance their budgets. Tens of them, right around the country. And we're not there, and we're nowhere near being there, but put us into that bigger authority, £67 million on day one, won't take long. So that's why this budget is to be commended. And I really do thank every single officer at this council for what they have done to make sure that this council can run in such a sustainable way. And this is the real killer. We are a sustainable authority. And for all the rhetoric, and we had the local government secretary once again speaking yesterday, completely ignoring the fact that there are unitary authorities being swept up in local government reorganisation, always talks about two-tier, about simplifying local government. We've got simplified local governments. It's already here, and we can balance our budget. And we're not the only ones. There are other single-tier unitary authorities that are being involved with this who can balance their budgets. So we should be really proud of this. I'm going to take a bit of conjecture about, because I was actually going to talk about adult social care and actually the work we've done to make significant savings without having to cut services. So I was very surprised by the beginning of the reform speech, as if the domiciliary care saving, i.e. making sure we can do a market-led approach to this, has come out of the blue. Well, actually, Councillor Standen, there was an agenda item at my decision-making meeting in November on just this. So, Reform Group, unfortunately, your spokesperson wasn't there. Indeed, your spokesperson, and when he was PIP as well, hasn't been to any of my decision meetings in this municipal year. Hasn't attended any of my briefings on any of those before, so I'm not surprised that you were there. It's a real shame, actually, that Councillor Cordy, who was an excellent opposition spokesperson for PIP for that, always attended meetings, when he couldn't, gave apologies, but was always on the ball, asking good questions, understanding the situation, that he wasn't kept on as the spokesperson. Because then the mistake that Councillor Standard made today and the Reform Group in their speech, that would not have happened. So it's a real shame, because actually the way we're working towards there is a market-led approach, is what we already do for residential care. So residential and nursing care already works that way. This is moving it on to domiciliary care. This is achievable. It's not without risks, but one of the reasons why we as a council can be sustainable is because we do take some risks. Councils that don't take risks, councils that go very, very placid and do nothing to rock the boat, they're often the ones that get into an awful amount of trouble. Calculated risk is the right thing to do because it can make a real difference. So I'm just going to come to conclude my remarks by just considering the reform budget amendment. For some, obviously, £67 million on day one of a new authority isn't enough. Reform want it to be 70 million plus on day one, because this council will add a huge amount of deficit, or a significantly more larger amount of deficit to the 66 we would get from Hampshire. So this is a budget that should be commended. I welcome the fact that we've put it forwards. I welcome the fact that we can do it without cutting services. I welcome the investment we're putting in right across this city, right across all our portfolios. It's a budget we should be really proud of, and is in stark contrast to lots of other authorities, including those run by Labour, Conservative and Reform, right around the country. Thank you very much, my Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Winton. Councillor Fazakerley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I mean, the leader said at the start of his speech, this is our penultimate budget. It's our last actual chance for this council to decide its own budget without being interfered with. And the amendment that's been put forward by the Reform Group, which has faced criticism from some colleagues in the Chamber, doesn't take away from the Liberal Democrats the budget they've put forward. It just builds on it. It goes that bit further. We have been prudent in the circumstances that we're in. I acknowledge the comments that Chris Ward has put in his report, but the fact is, this council has no life left. It's got 2 years at the most. 32 million we were told the debt was last year. Now it's 66 million. Without wishing to be rude, we're screwed in effect. It just continues to get worse and worse. What we are seeking to do now is deliver to the residents of Portsmouth what we can afford to do and achieve to do. It gives, as my colleagues have said, a budget for Portsmouth people. Steve, you were right it is a financial nightmare that looms on us. I don't disagree with what you said. It's extremely worrying. I don't think any of us, maybe I can't speak for the Labour group, but I don't think any other groups wanted this. And constantly we see budgets from various authorities across the country, whatever party they are, raising council tax to the maximum. We're seeking not to do that. We're not busting inflation, we're keeping it at the rate of inflation. So many things go up. Water, gas, electric, TVs, name it, everything is rising. We at least have the chance to keep it within inflation levels. Lower than inflation. The problem is as well that the Civic Amenities Fund is a dead duck. It's no longer within our control. With 2 years left of this authority, what can we do with it? Nothing, basically. We should use it. We should use it for residents now. Do they want 1.8 million just sat in a fund doing nothing at all? I very much doubt it. Use it to help them now. Help community centres. As Councillor Standen said, Portsmouth's a proud military city. I don't think any of us need to be told that. We've got many ex-service personnel living in the city, veterans who've served the UK in numerous conflicts. Reform amendment is not detrimental to the administration's budget. It takes nothing away from it. The leader didn't even touch on the Civic Futures Fund. I think you missed a trick there, Steve, but we should use it. There's no point in sitting on it. I hope you subsume the amendment. What we can in this last full budget remains in our control to do so. We will be supporting children's activities and community centres in Stampshaw, in Baffins, in Buckland, in Fratton. You will keep council tax lower than the rate of inflation. You will support the very veterans who supported all of us and now look at us in the future for some help. And you can do all that by maintaining the very budget you've put forward. This is our chance to show this council is united, cross-party, in helping Portsmouth people. In a couple of comments that were made by some of other colleagues here, Simon, great respect for Simon, but the problem is, Simon, you've not mentioned, people refer to authorities outside of here. We're focusing on what Portsmouth is doing today. You didn't mention Hampshire County Council. If you want to pick on a council, mention Hampshire County Council, talking about a 14.9% potential council tax rise. We can probably all pick authorities across the country, whatever party they are, but we're not. We're talking about Portsmouth. Okay, Chris Ward, another decent chap. Well done, Chris. But again, the situation, we can't really plan for long term for the future because we won't be here. Help Portsmouth residents now. But I was heartened at the end of all that by Councillor Hunt, my ward colleague. I can see you already want to support our amendment with your enthusiasm you've put forward for community centres. I'm sure you'd welcome an extra 100,000, 40,000 of which is to go into community centres in Nelson. So, I ask you colleagues, I commend the budget to you. Sorry, what?
So sorry, he's debating at 20. It's only 20, but it's 40. It's
Ladies and gentlemen,
Sorry,
if we
I
could
said-
not
I said
harass the speaker, Councillor Fazackerley, if you'd like to continue.
Well, I've kind of finished. I just say I think if you pay attention to our budget amendment, I think it's plausible. Look at it in the circumstances that we're in now. Look at what we can deliver now. As I said, taking nothing away from what you've put forward. I'll leave it as that. But it's not irresponsible. I think it's proper. I think we can afford it. I think it's the least that we can do for the people of Portsmouth today when we actually have control of the right to do that.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Madgwick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
And it was nice to see your dad.
It was nice to see my dad. I didn't even know he was coming. It's always lovely to see him. He's spending most of his time now travelling the country, like I think most of us would like to, causing a nightmare other places. Sorry, it's a budget speech, right? Yeah, look, I mean, there's always a lot of bickering in budget speeches, isn't there, about like he said, she said, and this council, that council. I think Councillor Fazackerley's right. We could all pick a council across the country that's good and pick a council across the country that's bad, but we're talking about Portsmouth essentially. I think what Councillor Fazackerley and Councillor Standard have said is key, and this is one of the things that we presented to the officers when in question, is that we are coming to the end of local government reorganisation. Most of us have sat here for years now, and we're getting thrown different figures every month, and that is not the fault of officers. That's not the fault of the administration. But we are being led down a garden path by ministers that change their minds on the daily, and we simply don't know what our finances are going to be in a year, a month. And I understand that there's got to be prudent financial resilience, absolutely respect that. But Councillor Fazackerley's right, you know, we are coming to the end of the life of this council in its current form. You know, we have got a decent amount of reserves. We've got a decent amount of money. You know, we could always have more, of course. And to be fair to Labour, you know, regardless of what you want to discuss the figures of how much we've got increased, we have had a net increase, which is incredibly welcomed by Labour government, of course. And while we got the money, you know, we should give a little bit back to the residents. And, you know, Simon might only say £24 a year for something, but to some people, £24 will make a little bit of a difference. And across the collective amount, it will make a difference. So I think, you know, I agree. While we can give it back, we should. We haven't tried to remove anything from the Liberal budget. Funnily enough, every year I come here, I actually never criticise the Liberal budget, because I actually think, for the most part, the Liberals do a pretty good job with the budget. And I don't think I've been here for the last 5 years and ever criticised the Liberal budget too much. I think it's always been good. The one thing I miss, Lord Mayor, is what we tried to enact a couple of years ago, where we did a cross-party discussion and we all got a little bit of the pie and stuff, and I always respected that, and I do miss that greatly. I really do, and I probably speak on behalf of the other leaders. I think that was a really good proactive way of doing things, and it's sad that that doesn't happen anymore. But as I say, our budget doesn't look to take away from the Liberal budget. It just adds to kind of add on to it. And we will still be in a prudent financial position should our budget amendment be subsumed. I know it's not going to be, probably because we got a reform badge over our title now rather than a PIP badge. But, you know, at the end of the day, if it's good for the people, that's what it should be for. In relation to the amendments, I have nothing really to say about the Labour one. The Conservative one, you know, I could probably imagine this is going to be subsumed. I hope not. But it does surprise me that they're taking money away from Hilsey. The Hilsey allotments thing was actually something that was originally discussed between Donna Jones when she was councillor and our team. And it was something that the Conservatives actually tried to put forward with Pip and now Reform. And so I'm very surprised that the Conservatives are removing something that their former leader so greatly wanted. You know, and the additions, you know, clearly targeted. But the bench sheet, and what I will say is the bench sheet in Paulsgrove, and I'm surprised that Councillor Beauchard doesn't know this as the former Transport Cabinet member, but you can't put bench seating on that row of shops at Alloway Avenue. And just to note to the leader of the council, if you were thinking of subsuming it, you don't need to subsume that line because we've already promised that we will fund it via CIL from our funds in Paulsgrove. If you should be able to find a place to put that bench seating, we're happy to fund it as well. You know, but I think we need to remember what the Conservatives did to Paulsgrove, or should we say didn't do to Paulsgrove. You know, their biggest success in multiple years was to reopen a toilet and open up a splash pool for a month. You know, the Conservatives were the people that didn't hold branch committee meetings, couldn't even put a simple bin in a park, which I managed to do within 3 weeks of being a councillor. These are the people that allowed travelling communities to break onto our fields in Port Solent, not put traffic calming measures in Port Solent, which we resolved. What was that, sorry, councillors? Yeah, I know, literally. They were absolutely appalling in Paulsgrove, and that's why they lost. And even now, this proves that they have little knowledge of Paulsgrove, even to this day. They have absolutely no knowledge at all. And I know their Conservative social media is going crazy right now, talking about why we've not got money for Paulsgrove Community Centre. And I'll tell you why we've not put money for Community Centre. Because we have fully agreed to support the community centre through our CIL fund. We've recently topped up the gym and built loads of stuff for the gym. We've promised the housing department up to £20,000 of CIL fund, so you don't even have to agree on it today, because that's how much it means to us. And if the Conservatives had any actual knowledge of Paulsgrove, rather than just putting out a flyer once a month, they would actually know about this. But, you know, people will remember in Paulsgrove. As I say, in relation to the budget, it's pretty decent. It's pretty decent. We would like our amendment to be subsumed, but it won't be. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Madgwick. Colleagues, it's 4 o'clock. Can I suggest we have a 15-minute adjournment just so people can stretch their legs, etc. So, colleagues, if we could be back here but 20 past, would that be acceptable, colleagues? Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. Okay, Councillor Heaney, you're next.
Oh, gosh. Sorry? Hide the snap. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm rising, obviously, to second the Labour budget proposal, but also just to say a few things about the situation with local government funding. I mean, we all know that local government has faced the most horrendous period in the last 10 to 15 years. It's faced the most severe cuts in spending since 2011-12. And of course, we've had to deal with the COVID crisis as well, which has exacerbated some of the problems. So the problems we have with local government failing, and it's very clear that many local authorities are now facing the possibility of being unable to balance their budgets, has in part, for a few of them, been because they have made some really bad decisions, and they have actually put their councils in a position of extreme jeopardy. And I won't name them because we all know who they are. But there are many other councils who've tried very hard to balance their responsibilities to their residents and to stick within the government's requirements for council tax rises, but are still finding it very difficult, if not impossible, to balance their budgets over time. This has been a crisis long brewing. It was evident before the election of 2024 that there were going to be many more councils that were going to be in that position. And I certainly don't envy local government ministers having to deal with the problem. But deal with it they will have to do at some point. A start has been made. The government has relooked at the local council fair funding formula, which has been, again, put off for many, many years, and we have certainly benefited from that. Also, we now have settlements that cover more than 1 year, which is really important. We've got some certainty for the next 2 years, including this year, what our budgets will be, and that's really important. But there is a wider problem within local government finance which needs to be addressed, is how we make sure that local councils can actually deliver the services they want. It can either come from government grant or come from council tax. Ultimately, some government has got to realise that we are going to have to do something about council tax. Whether it's extended bans or evaluation, there's got to be something done to make it a more sustainable base. Because whilst many people talk about Portsmouth as being sustainable as a local authority, one of our problems is that our council tax base is so low. 80% of our homes are in bands A to C, and we raise considerably less money on our council tax properties than other comparable authorities. So that is a big handicap that we have, and which has been with us for many years. So some sort of addressing the council tax problem has got to happen at some point in the future. So welcoming what the government has said, in some respects, I'm saying it's work in progress and more work to do. I was interested to hear how the reform budget was being presented. I listened to Councillor Fazakerley, and his basic position was, well, we're not going to be here in a couple of years' time, so what the hell, let's blow the budget. That was essentially what he said. He said, oh, we're not affecting the Liberal Democrat budget. Well, you may not be affecting it this year, but you're affecting it next year because you are building in a higher deficit for us to fund next year. And according to the estimates from the Director of Finance, that's another 1.9 million on top of the 3 million that we have already to find. So what they're saying to the people of Portsmouth, well, you could have all these things in our budget, but you'll have to pay for it later. Either because we'll have to cut services, or we'll have to whack the council tax up even more. That doesn't seem to me to be a very responsible way of running the authority. This is not a game we're playing here. People's jobs, people's services are at the heart of all of this. And what we need to do is to do the best we possibly can in the circumstances we find ourselves. And I have to say, I think the problem with the reform budget is it plays fast and loose with our financial future. So just assume for a moment, for some reason, the government decided not to go ahead with LGR. Admittedly, we would be left with the problems that the reform budget have left us with. We'd have more to do on our limited tax base. So we cannot really say that this is a sensible process. Now, I looked at the Director of Finance's comments. I can remember 3 occasions when the Director of Finance has made comments which make me go, ooh, that's finance officers things, don't do this. One was in 2010. I wasn't on the council in these times, when the administration proposed no council tax income no council tax increase before the general election, despite the fact everyone knew that the new government was going to make cuts. And basically they were told this is not a responsible thing to do because there are going to be cuts, so you should ensure your income is at least secure for this year, even if you don't know what's going to happen next year. We have had a couple of occasions when the government has offered councils a sum of money in one year and said, don't put your councils up, you can have some money. And you think, oh yeah, you take it, and then the next year it disappears. So you're back to where you were the previous year. You are no better off, and that's the problem that has been indicated. When you don't raise your council tax, you've lost that income forever. And because we are a low council tax base, that makes it even more of a problem. And I think that is a complete betrayal of citizens of this city by telling them they can have something now, but they're going to have to pay more for it or have less services in the future.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Heaney. Councillor Pitt, to sum up.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. It's been an interesting debate today, and I'd like to thank members for their contributions. I think we've heard quite a lot of grown-up conversation in the room today, acknowledging that the position for the city remains uncertain, that we don't know exactly where we're going to end up. I think Councillor Heaney's right. It is possible. We've had a lot of U-turns. We might not see local government reorganisation go ahead, and then where would we have left ourselves if we made decisions that one particular group have put forward today? I was very, very clear in my speech that everything that we're doing, and I believe this is understood by both the Labour and Conservative groups, because they've both mentioned it today, is about fixing the roof while there is a glimmer of light before the dark gloom of LGR descends upon us. To increase, deliberately, knowingly increase the amount of services that are going to be cut just a couple of years down the road is, in my view, deceit for our residents. So this sort of jam today, mouldy bread tomorrow approach of presenting a budget just won't cut it. But actually, nobody's mentioned, or I don't think anyone mentioned specifically, that when reform swept to power in a number of local authorities last year, particularly county councils, it was on a pledge not to put up council tax. And not only are they all putting up council tax, the reform group in Portsmouth, who haven't yet, thank goodness, run the council, are already pledging to put up council tax, showing just what a load of vacuous nonsense that was that we had to listen to last year. And we've already heard that there's going to be cuts. So, you know, depriving the kids of the facilities they need, cutting early help and intervention for our most vulnerable residents, including young people and the elderly, and yes, veterans, a one-off stunt, a bung to try and convince people that they can trust reform, a paper-thin ploy to mislead and distract. Serious leadership, this is not. Now, I go back to the comments of Councillor Vazacali, and I agree with Councillor Heaney. It was very much a sort of, oh, well, it doesn't really matter, because you know, we don't know where we're a couple of years' time, and it's all going to be different anyway. Might as well give the residents something while we can. What, when the Director of Finance tells you that the implications of that is that you've actually increased the amount of money you have to find in future years? So it really is just a very short-term amount of money, and I understand that £2 a month for some families does actually make a difference. Yes, it does. But if you said to those families, do you want £2 a month back for the next year? And then the following year we'll go to the government for exceptional financial support and we'll ask to increase your council tax by more than 4.99% because we can't balance the budget. How do you feel about that? Do you think they're actually going to say yes? Because this is all about balance. You have to create balance, and balance is brought in over time. Now, with the exception of Councillor Standen, the rest of the reform group, when they were Portsmouth Independent Party, sat here last year and nobody was proposing that we didn't raise council tax by 4.99%. In fact, they voted to raise it by 4.99% every year for the next 3 years, because there was nothing in their amendment about changing that. Suddenly you flick the little sign over the top and, oh no, we've got to do this now because Nige says so. I saw a brilliant tweet yesterday with him arriving in the Chagos Islands on a small boat. Oh, the irony. So the discussion that we've had on the whole today has been grown up and mature. And it has been about what we can do to do everything we can to future-proof the city so that when we get to LGR, we are in a very strong position to argue to our friends and neighbours in Fareham, Gosforth and Havant that we have not shied away from the tough decisions, that we have made those decisions in the best interests of our residents, and that we expect them to behave similarly when that new budget is being set. And when that shadow authority comes in 2027, we will still be here. So some of us will be sitting on both sides of that. Some will be in shadow authority and the existing council. Some won't be. But this council will be in a position to try and influence what that shadow council does and persuade it to make grown-up decisions. How could we do that if we do some stupid, cheap stunt to take money away from an existing scheme just to give people back a one-off bung, knowing that the implications and costs of them in just 12 months' time are so significantly more? And then you have to look at where the money was coming from, Civic Futures. Now, I absolutely accept that as it stands today, the future is uncertain, and we do not know what the future of our civic offices will be. We don't know if we'll be able to do that regeneration scheme. We don't actually know where our council staff are going to be based. But what I can tell you for nothing is if you go back to the report on Civic Futures and the discussions that we had about it previously as a council, is the reason we needed to do it is the enormous repair bill on that building if we don't do it. So how are you guys going to pay for that then? Or are you planning to just board up the civic offices and capitulate and move to Fareham? Because the money has to come from somewhere. You can't just magic it out of thin air. So the reason we didn't touch that, I'm surprised you didn't take it yourselves. You could have done this. We didn't because it's responsible not to keep our options open and make sure that we can keep that building ticking over until we get to a point where we know what the future looks like. Because the landlord's maintenance budget that we've got for this year doesn't include £1.8 million for the civic offices. And we know that the looming repair schedule on that building is absolutely huge. In fact, it's so huge, as we articulated in the Civic Futures report in the first place, it is actually the single biggest threat to our financial liability. So where did they go for the money? They go to nick it from the single biggest threat to our financial viability, something we were trying to address and deal with in an adult way. And I would remind you that a former Reform group leader, when he was Portsmouth Independence Party, was on a consultation group around Civic Futures and supported it. My Lord Mayor, we cannot accept nonsense, childish politics with budgets. I don't mind if people want to propose all sorts of stuff. That's part of their political beliefs or their priorities, that's fine. But to try to move us from a position of balance and common sense to where the Section 151 officer is saying this council is strongly advised to reject the proposed amendment for the reasons set out below. The proposed amendment has no regard for the future financial implications for the City Council and therefore the sustainability of council services. There, in bold letters, there is no plan to remedy the increased budget gap that will arise in 27-28 when we will still be here, and future years, which presents a risk to the continuation of council services. Now, I've been around quite a long time, on the council since 2016, and paying attention to what goes on here in detail since 2008. I can't remember anything that strongly worded ever being put in a budget report or an amendment by the Director of Finance of this council. So let's be clear, it's a stunt for social media. In fact, it appeared on social media early stages of this debate. That's all it was about. Just bung it out there, get it out, tell everybody that we're amazing and that they're all nasty, evil people who want to put your council tax up by 4.99%. And let's hope that gets us some votes. Well, I hope it does get you some votes, because actually, if you became the administration of the council based on that kind of politics, good luck to you. 6.9 million we'd increase losses by 29-30. That's a huge amount. We're talking about £1 million a year saving for the next 3 years, going up to 6.9 million. As has already been pointed out, you take the money out once, you take it out next year, and the year after, and the year after that, and the year after that as well. And as Councillor Heaney rightly said, in the past, Michael Gove it was, who said, here's the money this year, don't put up council tax, we don't want you to, and then the money disappears the following year. Now, I refer you back to what I said in my speech, that the extra money we're getting at the moment is going to taper off over this 3 years. We have no idea what that's going to look like in 3 years' time. So I'd like to thank our colleagues in the chamber today who've acknowledged where we are, who have realised that the whole premise of in particular the capital budget is about making sure that we're looking after the things that us and our residents care about and making sure they've got a fighting chance of surviving when there's a much, much bigger area to cover with a really relatively modest financial cake to take from in future. And that this is not about it's not about posturing, it's about calm, common sense, where we've looked at those things that we truly believe matter to people and we've tried to protect them as best we can. And Lord Mayor, I can tell you that is what other local authorities around the country also facing local government reorganisation are doing. I haven't come across any of them where they're proposing a one-off bung by taking away the money that actually keeps the roof operating where they operate their council services from. I'm actually quite appalled. Thank you.
Councillor Pitt, could I ask, are you prepared to assume any of the amendments?
No, we'll vote on them individually, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pitt. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do the amendments in the order in which they were proposed. Because of the rules, we have to do this by standing at each time. Is that correct, James?
That's correct.
So, can I call first the amendment put down in Councillor Joe Standon's name from Reform? Those in favour, please stand.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Those in favour of the Reform Amendment, Councillor Russell Simpson, Councillor Jason Fazakerley, Councillor Emily Strudwick, Councillor George Madgwick, Councillor Lee Tyndall, Councillor Matthew Cordy, Councillor Derek North, Councillor Raymond Dent, Councillor Joe Standen. You may take your seat now, Councillor Standen.
Can I therefore call all those who want to vote against this amendment, please stand.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Those against, Councillor Adeniran, Councillor Ghosh, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Corkery, Councillor Coles, Councillor Shah, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Vallely, Councillor Gerarda, Councillor Heaney, Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Holder, Councillor Dorrington, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Kadir, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Atwell, Councillor Barrett, Councillor Brown, Councillor Candlish, Councillor Adair, Councillor Brent, Councillor Mason, Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Horton, Councillor Pitt and Councillor Sanders.
And those wishing to abstain, please stand.
Abstentions are Councillor Simon Bosher, Councillor Spencer Gardner, Councillor Benedict Swan and Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. The result of that was 9 in favour, 28 against and 4 abstaining, so that amendment is lost. The next amendment was the amendment from Councillor Gerarda from the Labour Group. Can I see those in favour of that amendment, please stand.
Those in favour, my Lord Mayor, are Councillor Adeniran, Councillor Ghosh, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Corkery, Councillor Coles, Councillor Shah, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Vallely, Councillor Gerarda, Councillor Heaney, Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Holder, Councillor Dorrington, Councillor Kadir, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Atwell, Councillor Barrett, Councillor Brown, Councillor Candlish, Councillor Adair, Councillor Mason, Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Horton, Councillor Pitt and Councillor Sanders.
Thank you. And those against, please stand. There are none. And those abstaining, please stand.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Those abstaining, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Brent, Councillor Swan, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Bosher, Councillor Standen, Councillor Dent, Councillor North, Councillor Cordy, Councillor Tyndall, Councillor Madgwick, Councillor Strudwick, Councillor Fazakerley and Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, colleagues. And the Lord Mayor. Okay, that amendment was passed by 26 in favour, 0 against and 15 abstentions. We next move to the amendment by Councillor Bosher. Can I see those in favour of Councillor Bosher's amendment? Please stand.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Those in favour, Councillor Coles. Oh, sorry, Councillor Corkery. Councillor Holder, Councillor Kadir, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Atwell, Councillor Barrett, Councillor Brown, Councillor Candlish, Councillor Adair, Councillor Brent, Councillor Swan, Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Horton, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Bosher, Councillor Sanders and Councillor Pitt.
Thank you. And those against, please stand. There are none. And those who wishing to abstain, please stand.
Abstentions, my Lord Mayor, are Councillor Adeniran, Councillor Ghosh, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Coles. Councillor Coles this time, definitely. Councillor Shah, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Vallely, Councillor Gerarda, Councillor Heaney, Councillor Mason, Councillor Dorrington, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Fazakerley, Councillor Strudwick, Councillor Madgwick, Councillor Tyndall, Councillor Cordy, Councillor North, Councillor Dent and Councillor Standen. And Lord Mayor?
Oh, sorry, and Lord Mayor abstaining. We're not, well, anyway, it's not going to make a huge difference. So that amendment is passed by 17 votes in favour and no votes against and 22 votes abstaining. Okay, thank you very much. So that means that the budget proposal has got 2 amendments that have been voted through, proposed by Councillor Gerarda and Councillor Bosher. So we now come to the substantive vote in the budget as amended. Can I see all those in favour, please stand.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. All those in favour? Councillor Adeniran, Councillor Ghosh, Councillor Smythe, Councillor Corkery, Councillor Coles, Councillor Shah, Councillor Fielding, Councillor Vallely, Councillor Gerarda, Councillor Heaney, Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Holder, Councillor Dorrington, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Kadir, Councillor Winnington, Councillor Atwell, Councillor Barrett, Councillor Brown, Councillor Candlish, Councillor Adair, Councillor Brent, Councillor Swan, Councillor Mason, Councillor Ashmore, Councillor Hunt, Councillor Horton, Councillor Gardner, Councillor Pitt, Councillor Sanders and Councillor Bosher.
Thank you. And can I see those against, please stand. There are none. And those abstaining, please stand.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. Those abstaining, Councillor Simpson, Councillor Fazakerley, Councillor Strudwick, Councillor Madgwick, Councillor Tyndall, Councillor Cordy, Councillor North, Councillor Dent, Councillor Standen and Lord Mayor.
And the Lord Mayor. So the overall budget was approved by 31 votes, with none against and 10 abstentions. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues. There are no members' questions under section 17. So that brings us to the end of today's formal meeting, which was finishing at 4:45. Members, if you could reconvene in this room in 5 minutes' time, we have a private meeting where the members of the press and public will not be allowed to stay, I'm sorry, and we'll look forward to seeing you at 10 minutes to 5. Thank you very much indeed.